So, hello again everybody. I'm out today in the kitchen garden, in the greenhouse, partly because it's a little bit windy and potentially wet, but it's all good for the garden. Today, as promised, I was going to show you today how to take cuttings of your hardy perennials, herbs, some shrubs, so that you can propagate them and get more and more plants or replace old ones. To do it today, I'm going to be using our sage, which is this massive one here in a tub that is getting quite old now. It's quite a bit woody. It doesn't look as grand as it used to. So my aim is to propagate this so that I can get more plants exactly like it to replace this one. And sage is a very easy plant to propagate. I'm going to show you how to do it, and it is pretty much the same rules for all plants. I'm sorry if you can't see my face throughout this, but the main aim is for you to be seeing what I'm doing in my workspace and how it's done. To start with, try and be prepared. If you are going to do your cuttings, get your pots ready that you're going to be putting your cuttings into, which I have already done. I've filled them with just some general purpose compost with a tiny bit of vermiculite. The vermiculite is not necessary. You can just put general purpose compost in it. Fill it up, pre-water them so they are nice and damp and wet, not too soaking, and try and ensure always that there is drainage in them. Because one thing with cuttings, they don't want to sit in water. Doesn't matter really what pots you use, but do think about what it is you're going to propagate. If you're going to propagate a plant a bit like this Persicaria, then you need a very deep pot because the cuttings from it are big and long. But as you can see, these I took probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, are growing absolutely beautifully. And I'll have an extra about 8 plants from this. And again, like I said last week, if you're going to propagate your dahlias, you will want big, deep pots for your dahlia cuttings. And these were just a few, along with some others that I took of those dahlias last week when they were planted. Right, so once you have your pots prepared and ready and your workstation, it is always good to do this first thing in the morning if you can. Because at that point the plant hasn't kind of got dry from the day as in the sunshine or soaking wet in the rain. It's actually at its best to be doing it. If you're going to walk somewhere, so you're a little way away from where your workstation is, take a carrier bag with you, just a plastic food bag, so that as you take your cuttings, you put them in the bag, that keeps the moisture in, and then go do them immediately. Don't sit them aside for a few hours or leave them. Or like I do sometimes, I'll take a bottle with me, take my cuttings, put them straight into this bottle of water and go straight to where my pot is at my workstation and do them. That way you'll have a better chance of them being successful. Obviously, I've brought my plant to my workstation only because it's in a big pot and I'm able to. Obviously, out in your gardens, you can't just dig up the whole shrub and bring it to the greenhouse, so you've got to go to it. So you've got your plant that you want to propagate. What we're after here is softwood cuttings, so we are after this year's growth. So the softwood, not the hardy wood. You're after what has been grown already this year, which there is loads on this plant. It's just finding a good one at a good length. From here, I would intend to take a cutting of about 5 to 7 centimetres with multiple leaf nodes on it. So I'm just going to have a quick look and get some of these, what I think are suitable. Don't worry, just cut them off. As I say, if you've walked a little way, put them straight into your bag. Just have a good look around the plant, see what ones look healthy, what ones look good, are in a good state. They're not too woody. Right, I think that'll do us for now. Right, I'm immediately at my workstation, so I'm going to take a cutting, which I've done. As you can see, this one's quite long. We shouldn't need it that long. So I'm going to just put it against my pot. Obviously I want the top leaves pretty much sticking out of the pot. So I'm going to cut him just beneath the leaf node. And what I'm trying to show you is, this is your leaf node. This is where you want to cut it, just below there, because it's from this leaf node where the roots will grow, we hope. So I'm just going to cut him. So I've cut him up there. I've then taken off the actual leaves, and I'm going to do that most of the way up the stem. I'm just going to cut the leaves off. You can do this with scissors, you can do this with a knife, just gently, not harming the actual stem. I'm just taking all these leaves off because all they want is water. They just want to take all the goodness from this to keep growing, whereas we want actually from these leaf nodes the roots to take place. Once I've done that, I am just going to dip the end in some rooting hormone. Again, you don't have to use this. You can just put the cutting straight into the soil. So once I've done that, around the edge of my pot, I'm just going to make a hole, and it's important to put them around the edge. The reason you do that is because that's the best spot for drainage, it's the best spot for the heat on the pot, and it will grow just round the edges of the pot. If you put all your cuttings in the middle, what you will have is just a mass of entangled roots, and you will end up just with kind of one plant. Whereas what we want is several little plants all the way around the pot. So I'm going to get him in. That's it. And then I'm going to take my other. In a pot this kind of size, okay, which is about 9 centimetres, I would only envisage putting maybe 5 around the pot. Good spacings between each one. I wouldn't fill all the way around the pot because again you'll get a massive entanglement, and if one goes mouldy or anything then the others will do too. So I'm just going to do all these, cut my leaves off. It's important just to leave the kind of top leaves, as I say, because this is kind of the beginning of your plant. If you're doing this with flowering perennials, then it's important to take a cutting of the plant that's not already in flower. Don't cut off the ones that are already in flower, because that plant would have put so much into getting that flower there that it's highly likely it won't be successful. You need ones that have not flowered or are not likely to at this time. So that's the second one. Take another one. Again, once you've put them in the soil, it's highly likely the plant is going to look quite limp. You know, you've got to bear in mind, I've got to cut this straight from the mother plant where its source of water and nutrients is. You know, I give it quite a shock. But don't worry, they will look limp for maybe a few days, and then soon will start to pick up. I can't promise that every single cutting you do will be successful. Generally there are times that they're not. Not every single one will be successful. But at least if you've taken 5 or 6, if you get 1 or 2 from that, that's 1 or 2 more plants you had before doing them. And it's actually just a nice sense of achievement when you get more and more plants this way. It's a quicker way as well than growing from seed at times, because obviously some plants that you do grow from seed can take a very long time to get to a flowering point. Whereas actually this plant, you know, is already over a year or so old, it's already grown a bit, and you'll get a better plant. So there, I've only put 4 in this pot, and as I said, they will start to look limp and a bit lifeless, but once you've watered them and in a few days they will start to pick up. If they continue to look limp and lifeless, then it may be that actually they're not going to be successful, but don't give up, just keep trying. I've spent many years doing this to a point to get successful results from my cuttings, and I don't always get successful results. I've got here, these are some of the dahlia cuttings I took from the dahlias I planted earlier last week here at the hospice, and as you can see, 4 of them are fine, happy, they're upright, which says to me they're happy, they're going to root, whereas as you can see, 2 of them are not. They've been limp like this for maybe over a week now, to a point that actually if I pull them out, you can see they've gone mouldy on the stem, which means they're not happy. So, you know, even I don't have success all the time, but I've still got 4 very good plants. If I keep watering this, keep an eye on them, eventually I will be able to pot these on as individual plants. You're not aiming to pot them on until the roots are showing through the base of the pot. So here's some sage I did again a few weeks ago from the same mother plant, and as you can see, these are looking brilliant. They're all upright, they're growing more leaves, and actually in the bottom, I don't know if you can see, there are the roots now starting to show around the pot, which means these are almost ready for potting on individually as individual plants. So I've got 5 in that pot. There's also some others here I just wanted to show you. So this is a Spirorea japonica neon flash, which is actually a shrub. So this is quite a biggish shrub that has these beautiful neon pink flowers on it. And again, I took these a few weeks ago, and they are just about to show through the base. And again, I've got about 6 more plants here. And as I said, the Spirorea japonica, the Persicaria, again, I did these a few weeks ago. These are a shrub, quite a big one. They grow quite tall and have little white flowers on them. I've done obviously the sage, I've done some thyme, some chocolate cosmos, salvias, and the dahlias. As I say, the possibilities when it comes to cuttings is endless. There are other ways to take your cuttings and get them rooted. Another way, as I showed earlier, is actually via water. So you don't use any compost. You take your cutting exactly as you would if you were going to do it in the soil. What I use is a bottle, a recycled plastic bottle. I cut the top of the bottle off, take the lid off, turn it over, and I use that kind of lid of the bottle as a funnel for the plants to sit in and then into the water. As you can see here, they've been taken exactly the same as the sage. You know, I've cut a good 10-11 centimetre cutting. I've left only just the top leaves, taken all the leaf nodes off, and this is where I want them to root from, and they're just going to sit in the water. So what I'm going to do is keep these in this. These are penstemons, and we'll see in a few weeks' time if these are rooting along with our sage cuttings. As I say, the possibilities are endless. These are softwood cuttings. You can take hardwood cuttings of plants, but you do that a lot later in the year. That's generally done through sort of mid-autumn into late winter, and that's more for your climbers, your trees, and your kind of really hardy shrubs, and things like roses and stuff. So later in the year I'll show you how to go about doing hardwood cuttings, but these are your softwood cuttings of all this year's growth on your shrubs, perennials, and so on. Honestly, don't be afraid, just have a go. You know, no one's watching you, no one's gonna question you or anything, just have a go. I learned most of my ways of doing things by practice and trial and error. Most things now do root for me, and again, I've just learned different ways of doing different things for different plants. But if you're unsure if the plant you want to propagate is a plant you can propagate, then just look it up online or pass me a comment and I'll let you know whether you can propagate that via a cutting or not. It may be something I've never even done and would want to have a go myself. But don't be afraid. If you have a plant you really like and you want more of them, try propagating it instead of buying more. I do hope you've learned something from this. This is something I very much enjoy and I get a sense of satisfaction from when they are rooting for me and I get more and more plants every year. And next week what I'm hoping to do is show you a video where I am kind of revamping one of our flower beds here in the kitchen garden. It's by our inpatient unit. It's a flower bed that unfortunately has kind of just been left over the years. It was one of the first ones we kind of ever planted up, and it needs a makeover. It's kind of been taken over by hardy geraniums, and I want to give it a bit of a makeover. So it's to give you kind of some advice when it comes to choosing plants for certain areas and how to space them out and how to plant them. So thank you everybody, and I do wish you all well.